Welcome back. I'm glad you're here. I'm gonna make a pie today, but it's not a sweet pie, and it's a very surprising one. I am gonna make a chicken with hatch green chilies and potato pie. And I think I'm gonna throw some bacon in there too, because it just sounds good. But I'm gonna make a homemade pie crust using fresh milled flour. If you want as mild a flavor from the wheat as you can get, but you also need that light texture. If you use hard white or hard red wheat, you're gonna have more protein in it, and that helps develop gluten. Well, gluten in a pie crust isn't what you want, because that'll make it tougher. So we're gonna use soft white wheat. It's the best wheat berries to use if you're making pies, pastries, cakes, anything like that. You can use the other hard red or hard white wheats. They will just turn out different. So we're gonna make this using soft white wheat, and I'm gonna bring you along, and then we're gonna make this amazing pie. Now I have here 260 grams of soft white wheat. And you can see it's a light colored wheat berry, and it's softer in texture, and it will grind up differently. So I'm gonna grind 260 grams of the wheat, and I will get pretty close to that, could be off just a tiny bit. But then I'm also going to grind a little bit more that I will use for rolling it out. Now, if you have used a grain mill to grind wheat berries or whatever kinds of grain, one thing that you'll probably know is it tends to warm up your flour as it's milling, because it's the friction of the stones. And I help keep that temperature down, because you don't want a high temperature. It works against you. So as I'm milling it, I'm moving it around and turning the bowl so that it limits the heat that builds up. And you don't want to use a plastic bowl with the mott mill, because if you do, you'll have flour dust everywhere. So I usually use my Pyrex, and yeah, it can get warm a little bit, but not very much. And by moving it and keeping the flour moving, it keeps it from getting too warm. I've had my freshly ground wheat in the freezer for about an hour, so it's nice and cold. And I'm gonna weigh out 260 grams. $2.62, slightly over, but there we go. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, mix that in a little bit, and instead of using lard or butter for this, I bought this a while back, and I bought it for this purpose, to make pie crust. This is organic palm fruit shortening. So it's supposed to act just like shortening without all the bad stuff in shortening. And this is organic, so it's supposed to be very healthy. But it's also supposed to act just like you want it to be. This is nice and cold because it's been in my pantry. And my pantry is the coldest room in the house, and in the winter it's pretty chilly. So I need 2/3 cup plus 2 tablespoons. And I'm trying to press it down so that it measures correctly. I have not used this before, so it's an experiment. And I did not want to pre-measure this just because I do want it nice and cold. I'm going to call that pretty good. So I'm going to add that to the flour. And I'm also going to add 2 more tablespoons as the recipe calls for it. Now I'm going to work this palm shortening into the flour. Now that I've got the hardest parts broken up, I'm going to go just to my wire blender. And you can see it's just about there, just some larger chunks, but mostly it's worked in. Now we're going to start adding some ice water to it, 1 tablespoon at a time. And you can do this in a food processor, but that's a lot of work to clean, to get out, set it up, and clean it for this. That's it. All right. I am going to make a double crust pie, so I'm going to form this into 2 discs, wrap it in plastic and put it in the refrigerator, and I want to leave it there at least 30 minutes. While that's getting cold, I will be preparing the filling. While my pie crust dough is getting cold, I'm going to start making the filling. And I have peeled 2 small russet potatoes. And you really don't want more than that because it's going to fill that pie crust. And I'm going to use my mandolin to quickly slice it thin. And then when I get to this point, I start being very careful and use this little thing. And it does that so quickly. I love it. I'll try and leave a link for these things below. This thing is a lifesaver at times for me. So much easier than getting out a food processor. And it does a lot of different things. And that quickly, I have finely sliced potatoes. And I'm going to fill that with water and let it sit while I prepare the other ingredient. I've also shredded about, and I don't measure, about 2 cups. This is raw milk white cheddar that I get from Azure Standard in a 5-pound block, and I cut off slices and freeze it. And then I vacuum seal them. And I'm going to tell you, it's so easy to shred this after I have frozen it. So I have that prepared. I've got 1 cup of heavy cream measured out. And I've got a jar of my home canned chicken. Some people call this ugly chicken. I don't, because you know what? It's so good and so convenient. I don't think that's ugly. So I need 1 1/4 cups of liquid, and it called for 3/4 cup of heavy cream and I think 1/2 cup of milk. Well, I'm not using milk. I'm just using the heavy cream. So I'll take this up to about 1/4 cup. With the juice from this chicken. I'll finish draining off the rest of the juice off this chicken, and this will go over our dog's kibble, and they're going to be very happy. I have 4 whole eggs in here and 1 egg yolk. And reserve the remaining egg white because we're going to use that on top of the crust. I chopped up and fried 3 pieces of bacon, and so it's nice and crumbled up. So we have that prepared. I have some minced garlic, and I have Hatch green chili and some salt. So I'm going to put the eggs in a medium mixing bowl without making too big a mess. And we want to mix those up pretty good. About a teaspoon of salt, and I'm using Baja Gold because I really like it. Then we're going to add our heavy cream and chicken broth that off of the canned chicken. I'm going to add some of this minced garlic, and use what you like. We really like it, so I'm using a good amount. Mix that well. Some fresh ground black pepper. I love these things. And then I'm going to add my Hatch green chilies. This is a medium, and I buy this from a Hatch chili company in New Mexico, and it's really good. So I'm going to add just about half of, well, I already made one of these, so this is the remaining half of this jar. And if you can't get Hatch green chilies, you can use regular chili powder, but I'll tell you this is going to be better, and I'll leave a link for them below also. And we just want to mix everything together. Now I'm going to set all of this aside and work on the pie crust. And put some flour down, and this is the fresh milk flour. These have been in the refrigerator for a while. And I'm going to roll out the bottom crust. So I will tell you, and I don't know if it's always this way, this is a little more challenging than a crust made with all-purpose or pastry flour, but I know it's going to be good. So I'm just going to patch where I need to, press it in. Basically, we're calling this a pie, but basically it's like a quiche. And it's just full of so much good stuff. So I'm going to press that in there good so it doesn't shrink. Now you do want to use a deep dish pie dish for this because this is going to be really full. So I have that potato that I shredded into thin slices, and I'm going to put all of those down in the bottom. And I drained off the cold water that I covered them with, but that kept them nice and white so they didn't turn and oxidize. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now I'm going to add that home canned chicken. And all I'm going to do is just crumble it over the top. And you could use rotisserie, you could cook some chicken and shred that. But you know what? Why not use this home canned chicken that does a beautiful job? And so easy. Now I'm going to sprinkle on that bacon, because why not? Love bacon. Now on top of that, we're going to add that cheese. And I'm going to put most of it on here. I'm going to save just a little bit to add on after I put the eggs in here. Now we have this egg mixture with the green chilies and all that good stuff. And we're going to pour that on, and it looks like it's not going to fit, and some of it might not. But what I will tell you is it finds its way down there to the bottom. Now I'm going to set this aside. Actually, I'm going to put on that cheese now. I'm going to set this aside while I roll out the top crust. I'm going to call that good, and I'm going to do a quick, really easy lettuce to go over the top of this. And I don't care if it's not perfect, it's homemade. And all I'm going to do is lay these across each other. I'm not going to weave them in and out, none of that. Just quick and easy. And if it breaks, it really doesn't matter. We're just laying it across. As you can see, I'm not weaving it, I'm just laying them across. Now I'm going to attach it to the sides, make the rim, and put this thing in the oven. Trim off excess. Now I'm going to just brush it with an egg wash. I have my oven preheated to 425 degrees, and I'm going to put this on a baking sheet just in case, although last time it looked probably higher than this and it did not spill over, but just to be sure. So I'm going to bake this for about 45 minutes or until I insert a knife and those potatoes are done and it's all set. This took about 45 minutes in the oven, and if it starts to brown too fast, you can cover it with foil. I did not, but I think it looks beautiful, so it's all good. You need to let it sit about 10 minutes, and I have done that. And let's take a taste. And it's still pretty hot, even though it's been sitting for about 10 minutes. And I don't know if you can see the steam, but there's steam coming off. So there it is. Again, it's like a quiche, but you have a pie topping on it, so it's a little bit special. So I'm going to let this cool for just a minute and then we'll take a taste. So here we go. Fresh milled flour crust. This chicken, hatch green chili potato, and bacon pie. Let's see how it is. But it's really hot. Oh, it's good. It's really good. The crust is tender and flaky. I didn't know how it was going to be because I've never made this before, and it was a little more challenging, I would say, than normal. Was it worth it? Yes, absolutely. But yes, it was a little more challenging than I would say a normal homemade pie crust. The crust is tender, flaky. The filling, that hatch green chili, I used medium, and that's wonderful for us. Brian actually likes it hotter. If you're not a fan of spicy, I would go with mild or go with regular canned green chilies, but I'm going to tell you the flavor of hatch chilies is just amazing. So I'm going to leave some links below for the hatch green chilies and for Azure Standard for the soft white wheat. This, and I'm going to try and touch it. This pie is well worth the effort. And I'm going to tell you, this will be 2, maybe 3 meals for Brian and I. So much worth the effort. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure and go below, check and make sure you're subscribed. Even if you were previously, they're unsubscribing you. Please make sure that you're getting notifications because I'm hearing that too. Thank you and God bless.